Welcome, everybody. It's Eli Sussman here, just waiting for people to file in. We're going to have Kevin Barral hopping in. He's going to be our main host on this, leading you all the way to and through the trade deadline and probably right up to first pitch. So we'll get about 2 hours in here. And I said we'd start a little early if the Marlins did something cool, and they did something cool with Jake Burger for Jake Eater for Jake Burger. Just realized Jake's going both ways. So just give us another moment. And if you are a super subscriber, feel free to request, and we're going to bring you guys in very shortly as well to break this down.
Okay. All right. So that happened. So the Miami Marlins have acquired Jake Burger from the Chicago White Sox in exchange for Jake Eater. So first, I think, what's up, everyone? I think we are just a little over, 4:53 here from where I am. So a little over an hour still remaining for Miami to make one more move if possible. But first, I think it's fair to talk about Jake Burger and what he's going to bring. And very quickly, just to read out the stats here, I know he has 25 home runs, 214 batting average. Someone's not, it's a big power bat. I think what Miami's really getting here with Burger. 52 RBIs, 115 WRC plus, mainly plays third base. I really like the trade for Miami. It's a guy who I believe still has control left. I'm about to confirm that.
He has all of his control, Kevin. This is just his first full year in the big league, so still basically earning the league minimum. I think even next year, still pre-arbitration eligible. Yeah, so I'll give my quick thoughts on it as well. Like, this is a guy I've been watching him. His name did cross my mind as this trade line got closer. I think a lot of people were on the same wavelength that you circled the Cardinals and you circled the White Sox as the two most likely trade partners for the Marlins here. So the fact that they're dealing with the White Sox, not a surprise, except for the fun fact that these teams have not hooked up on a real trade for about 9 years prior to this one. So they have not worked with each other frequently, but it just made way too much sense, I thought, considering everything that the White Sox had available. And of course, their reality of their season. And with Burger, I think Aram Layden put it pretty closely. I'll probably add his tweet here, where they're selling high on a guy that just hasn't been on the field very much after being a former first-round pick. He's had big injury setbacks in his career. And even now, having a career year, he's an incomplete player. There are some extremes in this guy's game. And the big positive, and the one where it's hard to dislike this on first glance, is because the big positive is the power. 25 home runs for somebody who isn't even starting every single day on joining a Marlins team as an infielder. This is the type of player that made a lot of sense. You just didn't know if he would be fully available like the other White Sox, because he is still so young and so cheap and under control for so long with this team. Yeah, but the Marlins were able to get the deal done by offering one of their very best prospects in return, Jake Eater. And that's a guy I've been generally high on him. From watching him recently, I had a feeling that if they were going to trade him now, though, they wouldn't get quite as much value as he used to have when he was in previous trade rumors before his Tommy John surgery. And I think that's kind of reflective here. They get a player that helps them quite a bit now and probably will help them in the next couple of years. But, somebody that has a relatively limited ceiling, that's probably not going to be an everyday starter, even on this team. And yeah, they trade away somebody in Eater that as soon as next year could be a really effective major league starter if everything goes well. So there's some risk on both sides. The risk that Berger just doesn't make enough contact to be a good net positive for your team. He is striking out 32% of the time this year. That's I think that's even worse than just about anybody on the Marlins. That might be even worse than Avi is to this point in the season, just to give you some context. Avi, for example, 29% both this year and last year. That's a big hole in his game for sure. That being said, he addresses a pretty immediate need, and the alternatives on this market were not great. There were so few other. How many other position players traded at this deadline are better offensively than Jake Berger? It's a really small list that it could probably fit on one hand. So that's it's an interesting deal, and my first glance is that it's a pretty fair deal that's appropriate for both sides.
Just quickly before we move on, there were the Dodgers and the Tigers that had trade for Eduardo Rodriguez, and that got vetoed. So, quick update with that. So, Eduardo Rodriguez still not traded yet. So, yeah, Carver. Obviously, your boy Jake Eater's gone. I just want to get your thoughts on, what Miami's giving up. I think that's where we have to go.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's a mutually beneficial trade. The Marlins definitely need an upgrade at that position, and they got it here with the guy who's very young that still has a lot of control. It hits a ton of home runs. They went the route of acquiring a lot of guys that just get base hits, like Arias and others, in the offseason. And here they get a good power bat that will definitely be an upgrade over Segura at third base. So, this pushes Segura into that, veteran leader role, probably goes to the bench. Right, sticks around the team, but goes to the bench and is more of that mentor kind of guy. We all hear how great he is in the clubhouse. Well, he still has that role. He just won't be starting every day. That spot will belong to Mr. Berger. So, it's definitely cool to see. It's cool to see them get a position that they need. And it's a guy that's going to be with the Marlins for a while. Marlins like players like this that have a lot of team control. He'll be very cheap until 2028. He'll be very, very cheap. May have to pay him a little bit extra in arbitration when he gets there, but man, the Marlins will definitely take that. I definitely like the addition of Berger for this team, not only for this year, but also for the future. This is a guy that's going to be here not just for this year and help the team out this year. He's going to help them out in the future as well, I believe. I think this is going to be your staple third baseman for a while. And I think he has more improvement to do. Right now he's only a power threat, more so than anything, but that doesn't mean he can't become more. If the Marlins can withdraw that from him. So I like the return of Berger. To answer your question on Jake Eater, the Marlins are giving up one of their best pitching prospects, that's for sure. This guy was challenged along with Max Meyer to Double-A in 2021, and Eater was better. There's no other way to put it. Came out in his in his pro debut, and I think struck out 10 guys. I think his slider is one of the best in minor league baseball. The risk for the White Sox is the fact that he's coming back from Tommy John surgery, and since he's been back, he's been quite wild. So that's what the White Sox are going to have to fix. But I definitely think that Eater can do it. Really good, really, really good pitcher. I think he's got 3 pitches to him. He's up to 95. Usually sits like 92, 93, but can reach up to 95. And the breaking pitchers are real, real good, especially that slider. So, yeah, they're giving up one of their top pitching prospects, but I think we all anticipated that Eater could be a guy that would be leaving the Marlins organization. And you see it here in a 1-for-1, a Jake for Jake. I really do like this trade. It sucks to see Eater go, but I do like the return of Berger for sure.
Yeah. So, obviously, Miami feels the need. I think really, and I think I think we could all say that aside from Soler, there's not really a clear power bat in this lineup. Avi Garcia obviously hasn't shown much power with the Marlins. De La Cruz, I think this is his first real season with 10-plus homers, put up career high right now. And right now you're getting Jake Berger with 25 bombs and probably could finish with, a little over 30. So Miami's getting a pretty crucial bat in the order. Obviously, if we want to look at what we don't like about Berger, obviously a 31% strikeout rate, not good. 279 OBP, not good. Doesn't walk too much. Eli, anything else you want to add with Berger?
Well, I did add the tweet from Baseball Trade Values, which is a polarizing site that, for all its flaws, the vast majority of deadline trades fall within their model. And to see that the Marlins come out as fleecing the White Sox here and it being rejected as an overpay by the White Sox, that surprised me a little bit at first glance. And as they explained in this thread, that they probably overvalued Berger and maybe they're undervaluing Eater a little bit, just considering how he's gradually trending upwards in recent weeks and looking closer to his former self. But I have to say, I watched Eater myself. I watched his 10 strikeout game, his best game of the season this past week, and I was not overly impressed. His velo is still down from where it was pretty substantially. He was topping out at 95, but kind of sitting in the low 90s during a start. And the reason why he piled up so many strikeouts is because he diced up all these lefties in the lineup. With Eater, I see him as more of a high floor pitcher than he is. That ceiling is still relatively high if he gets the velo back, but more so he's a high floor guy because he's going to dominate lefties. And I think even at the big league level, he's a safe bet to have a lot of success against lefties. The question, I think, is every other aspect of him. The changeup, I think, looks a little bit better since he's been back from his injury than it was before. So that's going to be a crucial piece of him to stick as a starter. But for the moment, there is a fair question about whether or not he's even going to be a starter at the big league level. There's a big difference in value between that and obviously what role you have is pretty crucial in determining your value. He's going to have to go on a 40-man roster this upcoming offseason. The Marlins would have done that pretty easily, but still it's yet another consideration that he's an unknown, and the clock slowly starts to tick on him, his, how much maneuverability you have with him. If I was the Marlins, I would have really preferred to hold on to him during the rest of this season, try to see. I would anticipate that his value is going to go up the rest of this year as he slowly reestablished himself. But at the same time, your main focus is on addressing the holes on this team, and they address the big hole right here. So I'm in favor of it. I don't quite agree with the model that it was a fleece here. I do. The more that I stew over this, the more I like it. But it's just such a good fit for what this team needs at this particular moment.
Yeah, middle of the bat order. I mean, when you go to Baseball Savant and you go to max exit velocity, he's in the 100th percentile. So that's good to see. And then 92 and 92nd percentile when it comes to average exit velocity, 99 in barrel percentage, hard hit 91 and slugging. Expected slugging is in the 93rd percentile. Obviously, the K rate needs to go down. And then obviously we'd like to see him get more on base. But aside from that, it's a fine trade. And obviously, Chicago needed pitching when it comes to bringing young pitchers, and Lance Lynn wasn't working out. So it's just a tough trade. I mean, it's a good trade for both sides, I would say. Either probably major leaguer next season. You would think Eli or Carver using that White Sox rotation next year?
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% think he will be. Like I said, this guy was very far advanced when they put him in Double-A right out of the drafts in 2021. So, yeah, I definitely think he could be. I think he needs to work out some of the control problems that he's had since he's been back. And then, like Eli said, just a little bit more polish on the changeup. But, man, his velo looks good. It's increased since 2021. I mean, he's just not coming back from TJ. He's only a few starts in. And his velo is hitting 95, which is not something he does often, but he sits 93 and then has those good tunneling breakers, like I said. Yeah, I think he needs to improve the control a little bit from what I've seen of him lately. And then some more polish on the changeup. But, yeah, he definitely could get to the White Sox 26-man roster in 2024.
All right, so now I do want to talk about kind of the guys that Miami probably had an interest in, and or the guys that Miami did have interest in. I think we could start with Michael Lorenzen, who goes to Detroit for Hao-Yu Lee. For Detroit, to Philadelphia for Hao-Yu Lee. That was their number, I believe, 6th or 7th ranked prospect in their organization, according to Pipeline. Obviously, Lorenzen is having a phenomenal month of July. He's been really good. And that was someone that Miami did have interest in, according to John Morosi. Obviously, Miami needs pitching. They need a starting pitcher. And Lorenzen was someone that obviously made a lot of sense, given he was on a one-year deal, not too cheap in terms of just the money. And Miami probably could have given up a good prospect for him, or a decent mid-level prospect for Lorenzen. But obviously, he ends up going back. He's going to Miami, but joining the visitors' clubhouse in Philadelphia. So, Eli, your thoughts on that trade? And do you think Miami could have probably beat the price that Philadelphia paid for Lorenzen?
I wasn't super enthusiastic about Lorenzen as a fit. I thought it would be much better than getting nothing. I just had worries about what he looks like down the stretch for somebody that is just not accustomed to starting very much in his career. That's been primarily a reliever. I was of the opinion that ideally, if they're going to go after a starter and pay a substantial cost to get a starter, it should be somebody that you could at least squint and see starting playoff games for them, or at least, starting crucial games in late September. With Lorenzen, that's a big question mark. And unfortunately, there just haven't been that many of those starters on the market. We'll see if they pluck somebody at the last hour to do so. I didn't love the fit. It hurts to see him go to a team you're directly competing against. That for sure hurts. But it does seem like with this coming together at this time, we would think it's unlikely that he pitches in this series, right? So it's something different if he is directly facing you in your hunt for a playoff spot. It doesn't seem like he's going to be available to start on Thursday afternoon or that quick a turnaround. So yeah, that was the guy that I was never super enthusiastic about him in the first place. But I do feel that they need to do something to add a starting arm over this next hour, ideally. Really worried about Edward Cabrera, and I still don't trust Johnny Cueto, even though he has surpassed our expectations since he's been back. You simply cannot, you can't put any responsibility on him. You can't just assume that he's going to stick at this level, given that he's barely pitched at all this year, and given how terrible he looked at times during his rehab. So it's a thin rotation, especially when you look at Luzardo and Braxton Garrett also pitching innings that they haven't pitched before. So it would be hard to chalk up this deadline as a total success unless they add some sort of arm to eat innings before it's over.
I want to call out, Kevo, on before you get to the audience questions. One more thing to call out. This guy's Jake Berger's pretty bad on defense. There's no getting around it. Pretty bad on defense. Also has, what is this? Let me see. -4 defensive runs saved already this year. That's pretty bad. If he's going to be a third baseman for the rest of this year or maybe next year, whatever it may be, that has to improve. There's no real room for him to go to DH with everything else the Marlins have in the outfield. So he's going to be at third base, but so he's really, really got to improve his defense.
Yeah. I guess if you want, I mean, that's a super small sample size. Obviously, he's over league average at just second base.
Yeah, I saw recently. I saw him playing second base recently. That raised my eyebrow. That I think this past week he was playing 1, 2, 3 games. Yeah, he played a lot of second base. All that came very recently with him. So I'm glad that grades out well. He doesn't have the typical body for that. Obviously, they don't need any more second baseman, right? Like that's the deepest position on the team, both this year and beyond. So I imagine they see him as a corner infielder, both third base and first base. So we will, again, there's still a little time to see exactly what they still do here. As we were talking about leading up to the deadline, the Marlins have a lot of bodies on the hitter front. They have a lot of guys that you actually can't really maneuver with. A lot of veterans that are either underperforming or should be in reduced roles. So like when you put Berger on the roster, who is the hitter that gets slid off the roster? It's hard to have a clear answer. And I mean, that's just another reason why Garrett Cooper in particular has been kind of speculated about. And I guess there's some reporting about him being a trade candidate as well. Just because we're at a point where you wouldn't really send down one of the outfielders, it doesn't seem, to put Berger up. And you wouldn't send down, even though you have a struggling catching situation, that doesn't make any sense. You still need 2 catchers on the roster. So I will be fascinated to see exactly what the corresponding move is in terms of how they open up room for another hitter on the roster. I don't think it's a super easy decision at the moment.
Just for context, Miami did try to trade for Carlos Santana from the Pirates, and it's obvious that they've been looking at the first base market. I could say that they tried to go for Crone from the Rockies. And aside from that, obviously, Cooper, 1-year deal, expiring contract, not playing very well. You could definitely say that. And with the Crone, it's been past interest. It wasn't this deadline, just for clarity. And I wouldn't be shocked if they do try to find a trade for Cooper. Obviously, value not too high right now, given how bad he's been this season, but there's going to be a team that's going to want to take a chance on him. Obviously, you could plug him in there. I liked Houston as a fit. I've liked it for a while. Jose Abreu hasn't been too good, so maybe Cooper going there. But Carver, your hands up. What do you got?
So just real quick for both of you guys, with the loss of Eater, who of course I thought was the best lefty pitching prospect in the Marlins organization, maybe some of you guys think Dax Fulton. So my question is the impact this has not only on the system, but when it comes to left-handed pitching, because they have Dax Fulton and then what this new guy they got in the draft, I think it was a CBA pick. What was the guy's name?
Thomas White. Thomas
yeah.
White.
So they have Thomas White, they have Dax Fulton, and then I guess the next best lefty pitching prospect would probably Monteverde. So this leaves the system a little bit barren when it comes to lefty starters. So my question for you guys is like, who is probably Fulton, but other than Fulton, who is like the next best lefty pitching prospect in the Marlins system now that Eater's gone?
Oh, I think it's Thomas White. I mean, there's not much more after that, to be honest with you. Miami essentially, in the comp round, got someone who was expected to be a mid to late first-round pick. This guy, I've heard amazing stuff. I've heard that he could possibly be better than Noble Meyer, is what I've heard. And right now, obviously, on the fish on first list, it doesn't reflect, but, since he's on number 9, but I would assume he's going to make a big jump on this list. And, yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, it's a loss to the overall pitching depth. Like it used to be great, but man, it wasn't good already. It wasn't as strong as it was in years past already, especially with recent injuries. Now it takes another hit here with Eater going the other way. So Marlins known for that great pitching development, but top end guys, it looks a little rough, especially from the left hand side after maybe the new names.
Yep, Nick. Our intern Nick, we're going to let him talk a little bit. I forgot he had joined. So, Nick, Jake Burger, your thoughts, and then obviously what Miami's giving up, and if you want to add to anything else.
I absolutely love the trade. I personally just love it because he has a fantastic name, Jake Burger. We're going to get burger bombs, and I think that is one of the most exciting things to happen in Miami. But overall, I think the best part about it is just the long term. It's of the deal because we were talking about it yesterday when I was at the ballpark. We talked with a couple of people where it's like looking into next year, it's those kind of corner infield positions. It's like there's just old players that we have there where it's like there's no real future. And if Jake Burger can actually produce and do really good, he has a future at one of those corner spots, which is a big bonus. I think we do take, like Harvard was saying, a big hit to the pitching system. With the farm system, I think that hurts, but I think overall this is going to be a beneficial trade for the Marlins and really create some more power in the lineup. Because Skip even said a post game yesterday, he was going through guys and he was like, he said something around the lines of like, we don't have any power besides Soler, and him showing off is good. But it's so Jake Burger really gives that extra oomph to the lineup that depending where they slot him in the lineup, it's an extra kind of bat that pitchers can be afraid of that, hey, this guy can hit a home run because now you have Jazz, Soler, and Jake Burger now sitting in the lineup that can actually hit home runs and hit them consistently. So I think it's good.
Yeah, I've just wanted to say I've floated a version of this stat before regarding different players. Jake Burger has more home runs this year than all the Marlins infielders combined. Like you can look it up. He is more than you can find. The games that played at first base, second base, shortstop, and third base between Cooper and Yuli and Arise and Segura and Wendell and Birdie. Yeah, the only one of that entire group that hits for power is Cooper, and he has actually had his best production when he's a DH. So this was such a hole on the team, and it doesn't change everything about them. It makes a pretty big difference. It is a really particular area that's been addressed. Ideally, what you hope is that somehow you can. What's tricky to deduce is whether Burger has already reached his peak or whether there's a way to make him a more complete player and cut down the Ks. And for whatever reason, he has a very low batting average on balls in play at 225, or league averages in the 290s. Does that turn around, or is there something with his batted ball profile that makes him really easy to defend? That's a big question. But for the Marlins team, when you have so much time to figure this out with him, and when he's already a productive player, even with these flaws, that's the thing. This was not a deadline where you could really take a chance on Yoan Moncada, who's been playing like crap for a year and a half. This was not a deadline where you can mess around with paying a decent price to acquire somebody that's not performing. A Tim Anderson, for example. You can't mess around with that. You need to get guys that are actually performing right now, to have some measure of confidence that they can help you right now. In addition to their particular fit, you want guys that were currently performing. And yeah, this checks a lot of boxes. I'll just reiterate that this was one of the players on the White Sox that I didn't think they'd be eager to trade just because of how much control they have left on him. And I think from what I've seen, he's pretty popular there as well. So the fact that they were able to convince them to do it, and for this moment, I haven't seen anything different. If it is just Eater going the other way, and if it is no other players, then I think this one is a win. But we can let Nick Alvarez talk now. He's one of our newest super subscribers. And what do you think, Nick, about what's happened thus far?
I'm a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest with you. Like, I can see the upside of Berger. Basically, I feel like his ceiling could be an Adam Dunn type from the right-hand side. But I also feel like his floor could just be a guy who barely struggles to hit over 200 and, maybe hits like 20, 30 homers a year, but that's all he does. So it's good, but I don't feel like it's great. You know what I mean? I feel like for, how long we have him under control, and then for Jake Eater, who, like you said, just is coming off of Tommy John, I feel like it's good value, but I'm just a little nervous about the profile of Jake Berger. That's really what I have to say about it right now.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are going to let in... let's let in...
We missed...
McGee.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, who do you have in?
Let me pick out the aquatic mascot fan. I think he was the one that requested before the others.
Okay. Sounds good. Jeez, we got a lot of requests. All right.
Yeah, no shit.
Nice. All right, aquatic mascot fan. What are your thoughts on the Jake Berger trade? And if you have anything else, now's your time.
So I like the trade. The strikeout issue doesn't bother me as much as it should for some reason. Defensively, I'm worried. Segura, hate seeing him at the plate. Not terrible defensively. Cooper is at the bottom of my list right now. I am done with Garrett Cooper. I know Berger's played some second. What are y'all's thoughts on maybe moving him to first base?
He's only played 5 career games there, but, I guess not to be an ass, but, his body type kind of fits the mold of a first baseman. So it makes sense, I would say. So
I know we have 40
like
minutes left. We have 40 minutes left, right, before 6 o'clock Eastern. It honestly, it's a good question. It wouldn't surprise me if the Marlins swing a last-minute deal for the expiry contract of Mr. Cooper, but we'll see.
I think if Miami trades Cooper, I'm pretty sure Berger goes to first. That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be almost unless you start Yuli every day, which I don't think they're going to do that.
No,
So.
I think one thing that's relatively clear is that Berger's going to play quite a bit at third base. There's nobody under the delusion that Segura is back to the player that they thought he would be and that he should be playing every single day. This is going to eat into Segura's playing time no matter what. So I think that to me is kind of the main difference. Where I think even defensively, it's not that much of a downgrade. It's hard to, Segura was struggling at third base for most of this year as well. So that was the biggest weakness on their roster was third base. And they got a guy who can play a lot of third base, even if it's not all there. I think part of the time you're going to see him in that position.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely going to be much less playing time for Segura, as I said at the start. But if you do trade Cooper for something else that you need, or maybe even for some upper level prospects or whatever it is, it's an expiry deal. Will the Marlins re-sign Cooper next season? I don't think so, honestly. But yeah, I really do think that if they do trade Cooper, there is room to do it because Berger can play first as well. But yeah, Segura is going to be playing a lot less at third base, I would say, with this acquisition.
With just under an hour left in the trade deadline, we have Isaac Azuka, who was at the ballpark. He saw Craig probably put out the tweet. He probably saw him do it. So, Isaac, your thoughts on the trade and what are the reactions around the ballpark? kind of a part 2 of a press box report here. He's a speaker, right? I'm not.
He is.
Yeah, you did fine, but he's probably got too much background noise at the moment.
Who, me?
Yeah, who you?
Sorry, guys. Sorry, I was talking with Kyle Seeloff a little bit. He seems to think that you don't make this move unless something else is coming. And I heard you guys talking about Segura. He's the guy. I would not be surprised if they cut him loose. I asked the person who told me this, and would Bruce Sherman be okay with this? That's just money down the drain. He's like, I don't know, but that he would be playing third base, Jake Berger, without a doubt. And I am curious to see what they do with Cooper, because that is the interesting part. But yeah, he's gonna be playing third, and Segura seems to be the odd man out, from what I understand from the ballpark.
And what are your thoughts on the Berger trade?
I like it. You need the infield power. The power that this team has in the infield is very minimal. So you do it. Jake Eater is a steep price, but you know what? If baseball trade simulator says it's good, then it has to be good, right?
It has to.
But no, it's what a team in this position does. You trade from your minor league depth, even though it is arguably your best asset. You do get someone that helps you right now, and I love the control. You have 5 years of control with Jake Berger. You saw the Baseball Savant page. He's got 100 percentile exit velocity, hard hit percentage. He's a good bat, but he hasn't done it for too long at the major league level, so we shall see.
Yeah, alrighty. So we are gonna let. All right. Oh, well, Eli just let him in. Alrighty, perfect. We have Cracker McGee here who's connecting from him. So we'll give him the awkward silence for like a couple seconds here. And then we'll get his thoughts.
Yeah, just to look around what is still out there.
Flaherty's out there. Eduardo Rodriguez is out there on the pitching side.
Yeah, for people with Eduardo Rodriguez, he exercised his no trade power to not go to the Dodgers, but the Marlins are not a team that are on his list. So if for whatever reason, I don't think that's a likely fit. I think Flaherty would be more likely than Eduardo Rodriguez. But that's still an interesting twist. You don't see guys reject going to the Dodgers that much during the middle of a year where the Dodgers are good as usual. But I think we had some issue with
Cracker McGee. It did not work for Cracker McGee, so I just let the next person at the top, and it is still connecting. Either y'all have bad Wi-Fi,
or we have too many people in the space, and like 100 people have to stop listening or something.
Guys, please don't stop. Oh my God, we have a lot. No shit.
36 minutes to go right here.
So yeah, I mean, when you look at what's left on the market, there's not much. Again, this was a seller's market mainly, not much buyers.
Right. And that being said, somebody like Berger is not a player that he's somebody that wasn't necessarily top of mind as a player that would be on the market in the first place. There's always surprises, especially during the last hour, of players getting moved that we didn't think necessarily were being shopped heavily. So, I think we finally got somebody to connect, right?
Did we? No. I just let someone else in because the other one didn't. He left.
What's on your mind, Matthew, about the deadline?
Still connected for me.
It says he's a speaker on my end.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay, well. Weird. This is very weird. All right, let me let Marlins Network in and see how this works. We'll let two of you in. They really are Wi-Fi. Oh, all right. We got Marlins Network in here. He has a speaker on my end. What's up? I don't know which one of you are connected onto the account right now because I know there's a couple of you. So, what's up, Anthony? All right. What's up, Anthony? Your thoughts on the Jake Berger trade, and if you want to add on to anything else.
Man, and I mean, I'm happy we finally got some power, but dude, the batting average, that scares me, man. And the strikeouts, like, I just don't know how to feel about this right now. Trading Jake Eater, I feel like he had a lot more value than people are saying he did. Like, this is a steep price. The thing I do like is the club control we have on him. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel right now.
I think a lot of us were in agreement that a mistake would have been trading Eater for a pure rental, and that the club controls is a big part of that. Yeah, in this case, they're just trying to marry the best of both. We're having a guy that is productive right now, and he's a clear upgrade at a position where this team was vulnerable, and he's under control for so much longer, and he's not making much money along the way, even the league minimum salary with it. But there's risk. There is risk, and he was not. I think during the week right before the trade, he was playing pretty well, but for the most part, a lot of his good production was centered earlier in the year. Let me just take a closer look at exactly how that went. Yeah, in April, he had this string rate, 4 homers in 5 games. He was OPSing 995 in April, and then he was almost as good in May. Big drop off in June, and then this past month it was kind of inconsistent, where so much of his production it comes and goes with the power. It depends how many balls he sends over the wall. Now, like historically with this Marlins team, it's a question of when you get a power hitter, how much of that power is going to translate to Lone Depot. And there have been a lot of cases of guys that it doesn't translate quite as well. With Berger, they're hoping that this is somebody on the real top end of the raw power scale, where if he squares the ball up, that it will go out of anywhere. Let me take a look at this on StatCast, where they show you like the number of home runs and expected home runs. And with him, it's 25 actual home runs and it's 24 and a half expected home runs. 25 homers this year, 24 of them would have gone out at Lone Depot, according to their estimates. This is the type of player where, yeah, it's the type of power that clears the wall by plenty when he does square it up. And so they think that he's safer than other power hitters. And to be determined whether that is the case. But I can understand the thinking here.
Yeah. Do you guys really think they're done with Gene Segura after this? I don't think so.
That's a good question. I mean,
really
honestly, let's put it like this: they did acquire a third baseman. They acquired someone that we expect to play third base. He's a free agent in 2029. It all indicates that either they're going to trade Gene Segura or they're just going to let him ride the bench and kind of put him in a little bit of some type of a role.
Yeah, I can totally see him playing some type of utility role. I don't think they just ship him out, because his values are all-time low right now.
Or maybe they put him at second base.
Yeah.
Maybe they give up with the third base experiment and he goes to second or something when Arise has a day off.
Yeah, and we see reports that we're looking for a first baseman. I could see Jake Berger going there, maybe moving Arise to first and putting Segura at second, and I don't know. But I do think they're done with Garrett Cooper.
Yeah. Now, to be clear,
yes, so much, Anthony.
Yeah, Segura. I think any way you slice it, Segura is the weakest link on the roster. But because he is under contract through next year as well at a pretty high number, that's why it was hard for me to envision them cutting ties now, because he is playing a little bit better recently. I thought the natural move would be having him just in a reduced role for the time being, where he still has there still is that contrast and skills that are somewhat complementary between him and Berger, because he still does hit for contact at a pretty high level. There are certain situations where he still would have value off the bench on days when he's not starting. But that being said, if you're just going by talent alone and not looking at any of the other factors, then Segura would be the weakest link. And we got to keep pointing out that they're going to need to do something interesting with this hitter group. They're going to have 13 hitters on the roster. They have 13 on the roster right now. You could look up and down. One of those guys has to go. Only a few of them have minor league options, and I don't think those guys are getting optioned in this situation. All signs point to, one of these veteran players having to get squeezed out in some way or fashion in order to make room for Berger.
Texas Rangers. I don't think any of us care. Probably the best defensive catcher on the market goes to Texas. But anyways, I hope he comes up for. Oh, yeah, he does. All right, Specs, what's up? Your thoughts on the trade and anything else you may want to add?
What's going on, guys? This is not a good trade. All right, we got Casey McGahee, basically. He's gonna be the random guy in the 7th inning when we're down 8-0 to hit a solo shot, and that's it. This was a terrible trade. Either should have been traded for the Cardinals for Gorman in a package deal. This was a terrible trade. That is all.
Wow. I'm the minor league guy, and I think this was a good trade. That's crazy.
All righty.
Casey McGee isn't exactly a good comp for Berger. Casey McGee had little to no power, in his Marlins tenure, so I don't know where he came up with that comp. But anyway, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that either. I think the guy's solid, man. I mean, yeah, he needs to improve on a couple things, like we said at the beginning. He doesn't hit for average, but the Marlins have plenty of guys that hit for average. He's going to strike out. Yeah, that could use to come down, but 30% is at least manageable. At least it's not 40, right? So that's manageable. And then you stick him at the end of the lineup for those guys that got on base in front of him and give him the ability to drive in runs. This is definitely an upgrade, man. You take the hit on defense. Yes, it is the downgrade on defense. Even from Segura, I think it is a downgrade on defense. This guy has not been good on defense, but you deal with that. If the guy's putting out 30, 40 balls a year, you deal with that every day.
Alrighty, we have insert hyper here. So your thoughts on the trade and anything else you may want.
We're done. So basically, I think there's levels to it, right? Eater, he has more upgrade than I think Burger, but right now it's a necessary overpay to make. So I think it's a good trade. But I don't think trading is our problem right now. It's our top end of the rotation. We're not getting enough production. That's why we're not winning the games as of recent.
Alrighty. Anything else on your end? Or that you may want to mention aside from the Burger trade? Anything on your mind about this team?
It's a fair point, by the way.
I like that guys with more contact than power, but I mean, I trust Kim. She wins a lot of trades. I trust whatever move she makes.
That's a lot of confidence, but it's a fair point that you made. The moves that she's made here this year, at least, have been, I think, overall so far pretty good. The confidence in me is also going up for Kim. I think this has been a good year for her. Previously, I honestly will be transparent and won't say that I was the same way in years past. But I do like this year. I think it's been better. What I would say for your point, though, yes, they do give up more long-term projection, but that's what you do in every trade for a prospect that is going in return for a Major League Baseball player, especially if it's a one-for-one, right? They know that Jake Eater's long-term projection could be that of a 1-2, at the very least, I would say floor 3-4 starter, but they're getting a guy that can help them and will help them, I believe, right now today because they're serious about winning baseball games. So it's a 1-for-1 for a reason. They're giving up the long-term projection, but they're getting back a guy with a lot of control and a guy that will still be able to help beyond this year. Yes, he's not perfect. Yes, he has things he needs to improve on, Jake Burger. But this is definitely a fine trade, trading long-term development for current production. So I think that's what you see here.
Yeah, and I think what needs to be really mentioned is that this is a big seller's market. It's not surprising Miami had to give up someone like Jake Eater, especially for someone that's not a free agent in 2029. So this guy has a lot of control left. He's a good bat for now. It's someone I like in Miami, and you have to give up a name to get a name. So that's what Miami did here. Thank you so much for speaking, and we are going to go on to the next one. We have 9 requests. And we're just going to go down the line here. Crap. All right, here we go.
We already had Gabriel in here. He's a super subscriber. Let him talk.
Oh, whoops. My bad. Gabriel, what's up? Your thoughts on the trade? I did not notice you added someone here.
Oh, you good. You good. Hey, so I actually really like the trade. I really like it. I like the longevity that we get Burger for. I could see, given that, like, for instance, you have Garrett Cooper and then Gurriel, who I guess Gurriel only has 1 year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so like, why not 2024 plus make Burger your first baseman? And then I guess Segura stays at third till Miami decides they're done. But on the other end, what I'm nervous about moving forward, if we're talking potential postseason, and honestly, like, there's even some questions just regarding 2024 and on, like, with some of the pitchers we have. Like, I have it written down here. Rogers isn't even throwing. We have no idea what's going on with him. Eddie can't throw strikes. Cueto, we don't trust. And then you got Brax. Nobody believes he can go past 6 innings. Is great sometimes, and then he's other times, and then Sandy's just not the same. until he wants to turn it on. And so for me, there's almost more of a priority right now with our pitching. Give it that, like, I'm watching every game saying to myself, I wonder if our starter's even going to go 6. And so that's kind of what my thoughts are. I like the trade, but these are also some of my concerns. And I kind of feel like if we don't get a pitcher by the end of this, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a failure on our part. I'm not going to say it's the end of the world, but that's definitely something that we needed.
100%.
Yeah, I have to co-sign the last point about the getting a pitcher. Like that to me was it's really difficult to imagine getting through these, well, especially these next couple weeks without some sort of innings eater of some kind. The back end of that rotation is just really shaky at the moment. Thankfully, it'll be interesting to see what Yuri looks like tonight. He's making his second start since being sent down to the minors. He looked pretty good in the first one in a limited sample. But of course, that is after the deadline passes, unfortunately. If that happens like the day before or a few hours before, and you had like full confidence that that guy is going to be a starter for you within the next couple weeks, then you're like, hey, maybe we could cobble together with our bullpen when needed, the in between then when he rejoins. It's a I understand like the push and pull with them because they just gave up one of their better prospects, even though for what I mentioned about Eater and some of the concerns about that, now it's going to be really shaky. I don't know how many chips they have left to use now to get that last pitcher or to get whatever they want. We had somebody with a comment about getting Elias Diaz or any catcher. Like they're really thin on trade chips at the moment.
Let me ask you guys this question because I'm curious. Let's say an hour goes by, right, and nothing happens on the pitching front. What do we do at this point?
You have to have a lot of faith in Cueto, and I suppose that means that Edward, for the moment, just to make it clear with everybody, the rotation is Sandy and Braxton, Luzardo, Cueto, and Edward for this exact moment. And it's not, there is a universe where that is an above average rotation down the stretch, but there also is a universe where only 3 of those guys are starters, only 2 of them. If somebody like Garrett gets really tired pitching innings that he's never pitched before in the season, there is a scenario where that works out. And again, with Yuri being not that far away, and even you look down in AAA with Daniel Castano making his first start in a while, looking pretty good, even though it was only 4 innings. I can't imagine them like picking somebody off the scrap heap in free agency. I don't think they would go. I don't think there's anybody there that's like an incremental improvement over what they got.
It's send down. Well, maybe not send down, but you definitely got to get Patrick Monteverde in the rotation. Like, you have to get that guy into the rotation. That guy's been good at every level that he's pitched at. It's a left-handed arm. You get him in the rotation. Whether that means putting Cueto in the bullpen or Edward in the bullpen, I don't care. You get that guy in the rotation if he's still here after the deadline.
Yeah. Quick minor league trade. Our old friend Alex Jackson is going to the Tampa Bay Rays for right-handed pitcher Evan McKendry. All right, we can move on now.
Wow. Thanks, Kevin.
I know. That one was groundbreaking. That guy's going to become a stud now with the Rays. All right, you could go, Gabriel. Continue.
Anyways, no, I'm good. Those are just my thoughts. I like the trade overall. I felt like it was a little bit under the radar. I didn't expect that guy now to be a Marlin. I am a little bit sad that we gave up Jake Eater because I really like that guy, like a lot. But it is what it is. It's baseball and it's part of it, and it is what it is. So thank you guys for having me.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Gabriel. We are now going on to another super subscriber, LMF, Loud Marlins fan. Chase, what's up? Thoughts on the trade, and if you want to add on to anything else.
Good, happy day, everyone listening, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. FLF team, go super subscribe right now to anyone listening, and you'll get a chance of winning a signed card soon. Smiley face. Anyway, that's from me, not them. Just wanted to point a couple things out. There's a lot of always complaints on Twitter about how at the end of the games, you're not trusting the guys who are up to get the big hit to end the game. You just got a guy who has the ability to change the game with one swing. That's the type of guy you want when there's a guy or two on base, or you need a run to tie it. You want him up because he has the power to do so. You don't need the single and then hope you get to Soler. You don't need the double to hope you get to Luis Ariz to hit the single at the end of the game. You have now gotten a guy on your team for the next 5 years who has that power to change the game with one swing. And the Marlins got that for you by giving up a prospect. I give it credit to the guys who follow the minors. I give credit to Alex, Kevin. You guys really dig deep into the minor league guys and give great assessment of what they could be or can be. Last year, we were all excited to have Max Meyer up. We for weeks there were things on Twitter about we need to get him up now. We need to get him up now. He came up and got injured, and now he's going to miss a season and a half, up to a season and a half. That could happen at any time to a pitcher. Happens to the best of them. Look at Jacob deGrom over at Texas. They sign him to this massive contract. He gets injured. Texas has surely made up for it in what they did on moves. But, pitchers get injured, players get injured, and you just got a guy for a player that did just get injured, who's rehabbing still, let's say, and he's your number 4 prospect, but you got to give and get. I like the trade. I like what it does to set our franchise up for success in the next couple years. We have a guy who hits for power now, a guy who will excite the crowd. You always say, we don't have that player who's going to excite us. Now you have the opportunity for a guy with a huge ceiling. I have a friend, I posted and tweeted this at you guys. He's a huge White Sox fan. Huge White Sox fan. He asked me about Eater. I don't know enough to really give him anything, but I heard he's really good. But he's watched Berger, and he says he's pretty clutch, and he doesn't play enough to really get a feel for it. And now he will. So great move, Marlins. Great move. We got to wish them all with success with the back-end bullpen work that they already got. That's great for us as well. Yes, I liked what the the guy before me was talking about needing pitching. Well, you hope Sandy has returned to form. So, once every 5 games, you'll get the long guy in there for at least 7 innings. Luzardo is just we haven't even really seen how amazing he could be, and he's amazing. Edward Cabrera, he's the iffy guy right now. But I'd like to see Monteverde from what you guys talk about him up here. So that's all I got to say. Let's be positive. We could nitpick negative out of anything and everything. The Marlins made a move. We were waiting all day for it. I was about to put a noose over my neck and start lifting myself up. No, just be positive, guys. Let's go Marlins, and let's make this playoff push fun. I hope to see you out at Lone Depot Park. Cheers.
Alrighty, thank you, LMF.
Real quick on a point, Kevin, that LMF made, which I think is a good one. You're right, LMF, that they got a guy that is going to be around for a bit, I believe. But they did give up a guy that, again, you called out Max Meyer, and I called it out at the beginning. This guy, I think, is better than Meyer. I really think Eater is better than Meyer. He has more of a chance to stick as a starting pitcher. He's a lefty. That's there as well, right? Meyer has the velo edge, but I think Eater has the overall stuff edge over Max Meyer, right? So their size, their stuff, there's velo that's improving. He gets the TJ out of the way early, like you said. This is something that the best go through, like you just said. So he gets it out of the way early in his career. Now he's full to rebound and come back. As long as that arm stays healthy, man, the White Sox got a good guy, and it's a guy that can contribute pretty quickly. So yeah, like we said before, it's long term. It's long-term projection versus right now production is the overarching theme of this trade. And I think it's mutually beneficial, but the Marlins did lose a big piece of their farm system today.
Yeah, and so before we go to our next speaker, I do want to say I think we're going to go just until after the 6 p.m. deadline. Obviously, Miami still has a game to play at 6:40. I think, obviously, usually after there's a couple of trades that still trickle in after the 6 p.m. deadline. So we will go until probably 6:10. Eli, you think that's a good time to stop it? Or
I'll keep it going. Even if you don't want to, I'll keep it going a little longer. Closer to 6:30 because there's some news that does get broken at like 6:10, and then we need to process it. Yeah,
you're right. All right, sounds good.
Didn't we get the Peyton Henry one like really late? Wasn't that like a trade we got like the news of really late? I seem to remember that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, you're right. Trades get announced a little late that get like finalized at the last second. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Mike Cabrera. I believe he's also a super subscriber. Eli?
I don't think so, but he's a friend of the program. He's been following our stuff for years. We're doing great.
We are doing good. We're doing good.
I'm just a little perplexed at the moment, man. I'm not a big fan of the deal per se, and I'll just make it brief for you guys. In this particular aspect, normally we save our 1, 2, 3 prospects for top-end guys, like a star, which is what this team is really missing. And if you want a comp for Berger, I'll give you one. It's Soler. Big-time power. Actually, Soler has a little bit more hit tool than Berger per se at this particular, but both are on the negative side defensively. So that would be my comp for him. My problem is with this organization at the moment in time is that their philosophy, they go from one philosophy to the next. In the beginning of the year, they stated that they wanted to go high contact, low K rate, and they wasted their 4th overall prospect for a guy that has huge K rate and huge power, but low contact. So there is no continuity in philosophy or a way of thinking. That's just my point of view on that particular side. I think what happened with Chicago is that they aimed high with Robert. They said no. They went down to Eloy. They said no. And then they just fell back onto Berger, my opinion at that rate. The starting pitching side, I think the biggest thing that they should try to get is to work out a deal for Flaherty. I think he has much higher potential than anybody else out there. Lorenzen, I like, no problem, but he's having his best season. Flaherty's on the downside, but I think in Mel we trust. That guy will fix anybody. Look what he's done for Luzardo, etc. So those are points of views that I see. I'm not a real big fan of it. I could be wrong with Berger. He's young. He's 27. That's great. But I'd rather have a guy that hits 270 with 15 home runs than a guy that's hitting barely over the Mendoza line with 25. We have a couple of those guys on the team already, and they're not sufficient. This team needs offense from the get-go. You have guys that get on, and we can't drive them in. Why can't drive them in? Because those guys have 26, 27 plus percent K rate. This guy has a 30, if I'm not mistaken, 30, 31. So is it a good move? It's a move. But it's not the one that's going to help you beat Atlanta. It's not one that's going to help you beat a Phillies team that is going to be healthy going into a postseason that's right now is ahead of us. So these are just my points. Thanks you guys for listening, man. I'll be quiet and listen up.
I mean, I don't quite agree with the Soler comp. Soler this season is striking out under the league average. He's walking at a 10% rate, which isn't new, and he's getting on base a lot more than Berger. Obviously, he still has the power, but I don't agree much with that comp. I don't. Soler, obviously, I do agree with the fact that he has the better hit tool, and obviously more bat to ball from Soler than Berger, and that's really where I stand. I do think that Miami, obviously, Kim said it in the presser that they wanted guys who would put the ball in play, and yeah, in a sense, I do agree. But man, you really needed a power hitter. That was known. Aside from Soler, who's probably gone next year, depending how obviously the rest of this season goes for him. He could obviously still come back in, but go taking this player option for $9 million. But man, you're getting a guy, Jake Berger, who's a power hitter, middle of the order, and that's very necessary for this team, who aside from Soler does not have a clear power hitter.
And look who they replaced.
Supplement.
What's up?
Sorry, man. Just wanted to say something. Do you think they supplement Berger with Soler since he probably won't sign with us just in case?
That's a good question. If Soler continues to kind of not play as he was playing in his first half self, I don't know. He has the choice to come back or not.
I think that'll be an interesting question for Skip before the game. Personally, I think that the best option would be to have Berger be the full-time third baseman until Garrett Cooper or Yuli Gurriel need a break.
which will be once or twice a week, and then Berger will move over to first, and then that'll be when Gene gets his reps in at third base. I did want to say one thing. I do agree with you, Mike, about Kim's philosophy to get contact-heavy hitters rather than power hitters, and that now it seems like she's changing the philosophy. I will say one thing to play devil's advocate is that philosophy has worked in that they are near the top of the league in team batting average. And I think that what Kim saw was this is a team that's getting hits. They're getting guys on base, but they're just missing the one big hit every game. And so I think that this is her move of saying, you know what, this guy's going to strike out a lot, but he's also once in a while going to deliver us the big hit that we've been missing. And if we need to take that along with the strikeouts, then so be it.
A couple of moves that just went down. Jack Flaherty's making his way to Baltimore. Former NL East player Tommy Pham going over to the Diamondbacks. So really the only pitcher on the market left is Eduardo Rodriguez. And the Dodgers are now talking to the Red Sox about James Paxton. So that's another player, I guess, now on the market there. So obviously Flaherty was a guy who would have been a nice fit in Miami. He now goes to a team that really needs some starting pitching, although their rotation's actually been able to hold it down. But, adding another legit pitcher there is what they needed. There is a possibility that Dylan Cease could be traded in the next 10 minutes is the last another report. But assets for that.
That'd be the dream. But I cannot imagine the Marlins having the assets to afford Cease.
That would be wild.
Yeah, Flaherty kind of seems like the realistic best case scenario that was left in terms of starting pitching. So this is a little deflating. Eduardo Rodriguez is still out there, but it's a big risk for a team like the Marlins that if something goes wrong the rest of his season and he doesn't opt out of his contract, then you're stuck with almost $50 million for the next 3 years on a guy when you're a team that just doesn't feel they should be paying for starting pitching moving forward. It's a big risk, and I have a hard time seeing them come to terms on that one. But maybe if there's really nowhere else for the Tigers to send him, then maybe they do come up with a creative proposal there that something that mitigates that risk if something goes wrong the rest of the year with him. So that'd be of the limited options, and the fact that this is still such a big, to me, this is still such an important area to address, that rotation. I guess you gotta be open to anything that is still out there, but definitely the Flaherty news is a bummer.
Yeah. All right. So we have, I believe, a recently super subscriber, Sharif.
Yes.
So what's up, man? And your thoughts on the trade, and if you want to add anything else.
Good evening, guys. Yeah, man, I'm just hanging out here. Waiting for who's gonna make the deal or who's not. And once again, appreciate you guys breaking all of that stuff down for us all season long, all of you. And I'm just hanging out, man, before the game.
Your thoughts on the Berger trade, if you want to mention them.
Well, I'm sorry. I just got in, so I didn't know what went down in the last hour. What did go down?
So Miami acquired Jake Berger from the Chicago White Sox in exchange for Jake Eater.
In exchange for
Jake Eater.
Okay, is that a prospect we got?
That's the prospect we traded.
And Berger, is he in the majors, or is he a prospect as well?
He's in the majors.
Cool beans. All right.
Yeah, let's let Kalen speak on this. He's been requesting for a while as well.
Hello, guys. Today's been up and down, I guess, emotionally. Not emotionally, unless you're that. I'm emotionally involved, I will say that. But I will say, I think a lot of people are being really pessimistic on this trade. I love Jake Eater. Great player. 6'4" lefty. He's got stuff. I've heard that recently, control issues, I guess. But what I really think people are starting to miss the idea on is Jake Berger also is a plus speed guy. He's a plus speed guy who makes good contact when he does and smokes the ball. 25 home runs. We've got a good roster of contact hitters, and I don't think that we're escaping a philosophy by getting a impact bat in the middle of the lineup. That when you see the production from Segura, and you see what we have replaced them with at least something that's impactful, as impactful as 25 home runs plus, we could see a big difference really in an offense. Gene Segura has how many double plays does he have this year? I don't know the stats on Jake Berger and double plays hit into or anything like that, but it sounds like he hits the ball hard and he hits it hot. He's not going to ground out into a bunch of double plays. So I think it's pretty important to just I get the philosophy of on base contact guys, which is very important. But I feel like we have a ton of those type of guys. We need more power coming out of certain positions. Third base is a typical power position. First base, obviously, too, which I think this move can mean one of our first basemen are either out or we are preparing for next year to move him over to first base, which would make sense. But I think it was a really good move, especially with our pitching line. We just drafted Noble, who looks to be really good. I think we develop pitchers really well. I also adopt the idea that there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. Sounds a little odd, but I mean, pitchers can come from anywhere. I mean, you can get a pitcher anywhere, everywhere, a great pitcher anywhere, everywhere, with development. So I think that, especially with the Marlins, it's okay to ship off one of our, unfortunately, a better pitching prospects, but for control and a guy who hits for power, when he does make contact, he smokes the ball. And he's a plus speed guy. I mean, I think that's one thing that's also very important is he's a tooled player once he gets the defense set up, and hopefully can or we move him over to first next year. I think that he can be a big piece, truthfully. So that's basically what I gotta say. I appreciate you guys. I hope we make a trade for a starting pitcher soon, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, you were the first one to mention that about Berger's speed. I disregarded that he is 71st percentile in sprint speed, way above league average, even though he doesn't use it as a base stealer, only one stolen base. You dive into it a little bit further in terms of extra bases taken this year. He's a really high rate of going from first to third on singles, from going to first to home on doubles. That is helpful. And honestly, I don't think that's much of a drop off at all in that category compared to, for example, Segura, if he's playing instead of Segura, a lot of aspects. Yeah. So not a base stealer, but an adequate base runner. I'll just cross-reference this with the Fangraphs base running stat as well, as we are seconds away now from the deadline passing. But a reminder, there will be news breaking even after the deadline passes, even by base running runs on Fangraphs. He is comfortably above average as a base runner. So I would not have expected that. That is we shouldn't, I think it's fair to say that he's more than just a one tool player, all things considered, even though that one tool is what the Marlins need most in the power. And there is certainly some risk here that we'll continue to acknowledge, because he needs to put his bat on the ball in the first place in order to hit those home runs. But that being said, there are some other ancillary benefits to this player.
Absolutely. I have one last point. It kind of reminds me, obviously not a direct comparison, but we saw Jose Siri get traded to Tampa last year. I think it was at the deadline. And I mean, I'm not trying to compare him to Jake Berger, really tit for tat, but I'm trying to say they got a player who wasn't very contact oriented, was a speed plus defense guy, correct? So here we're not maybe getting the defense, not even close to the defense that Jose Siri has, but we're getting a plus speed plus bad guy who, I mean, we've seen Gene Segura, a second baseman, be able to move over and play, I would say, pretty comfortably at third base, beyond a couple of mistakes made. But I really, really think that people are overthinking the defense of the strikeout. I think we've also seen this year, we've seen a lot of our coaching affect the way our hitters are playing. Last year's Jorge Soler and this year's Jorge Soler are I mean, night and day, which could be argued contract, whatnot. But I think that's throughout our lineup. You've seen all of our hitters. I think we can all agree that last year's Marlins base hitting has completely taken a flip, and I think that Jake Berger with a little bit of work, those types of things aren't tough to work on, especially for a guy who's torn his Achilles 2 times, which is very rare in sports for athletes to come back from that in any aspect. A guy who's has worked his tail off. I honestly think that long term this is a great move. I really am excited. I think Jake Berger is a stand-up guy, stand-up player with a few things that can be fixed. Truthfully, I think that these things aren't detrimental to a ball player.
So, not quickly with the so deadline passed 6 p.m. Obviously, we'll be here until around 6:30 when see what other deals go through. So the big one is Dylan Cease is not being dealt, and for the Phillies, we have Bailey Falter go to Pittsburgh for infielder Rodolfo Castro, and Kenyon Middleton is making his way over to the Yankees. So those are the other trades that have gone through for now. Obviously, still time to see what eventually this Eduardo Rodriguez thing does end up being. So those were the deals done. We are going to wait to see if Miami does end up making another one. I don't think that'll be the case, but we'll see. And we'll let the next speaker in.
Yeah, we've had this Ariana Grande fan account requesting for a while. I suspect that might be spam, but maybe it's a random Marlins fan that just happens to be Ariana Grande.
Alrighty, here we go.
But if not, then I'll have to go to the next person pretty quickly after that.
This is going to be either very funny or very bad. Is it connecting for you, Elon, or still?
It's still processing the connecting.
Okay.
But now let's go to Eric.
Dope.
What's on your mind, Eric?
Hey guys, how's it going? Assuming this is the last move the Marlins make and all goes well throughout the rest of the regular season, they do make a wild card series. Healthy lineup, what does that look like, and who kind of gets the short end of the stick and does not make that lineup, and do they have what it takes to win 2 of 3 in a wild card series?
I mean, when you make it to the playoffs, you never know. It's fair game for everyone, unless you're facing the Dodgers if you're the Marlins. But you have to feel pretty good where you're at with the team right now. I mean, obviously, you added a big bat in Diordi. You added 2 lockdown relievers, especially David Robertson. That's a big one there. And obviously, I would say that they still needed a starting pitcher. We don't know what trades have gone down yet. Obviously, those are going to trickle in. Maybe Miami didn't make one more. I don't think that'll be the case, though. But aside from that, you have to feel pretty good where you're at. Obviously, you have Yuri coming back soon. He'll probably give you a couple of good innings. And I like where Miami's at right now. They're in a good spot. Obviously, now they have to fight with the Phillies in this series to take at least the next 3 or split to kind of stay afloat in the playoff hunt. And yeah.
Yeah.
You too, Eli.
One thing we've mentioned about in terms of the lineup outlook, the one chair that what's the word I'm looking for? The one thing that hasn't dropped yet that we're waiting for is kind of what hitter is going to get squeezed off this active roster. Signs pointing to that it will have to be one of the veterans. So I don't know whether it's going to be Segura or whether it's going to be Cooper or whether it's going to be something outside the box that we're not thinking of. But yeah, that's the key question at the moment before we look too far ahead is getting a clearer idea of which of those guys Berger is taking playing time from and then playing it out. Yeah, though there's still a lot of questions with this team. So acknowledging that there could still be trades leaking out in these next few minutes, it does seem like the outfield is probably staying the same. And that's an outfield that is leaning a lot on Avi Garcia, who we've barely seen play baseball this year and who has played poor baseball the last 2 years combined. It's leaning and having guys that are streaky in that outfield as well, such as Jesus Sanchez. And with Jazz, they're leaning so much on Jazz simply staying healthy and being himself, even though he has not been healthy this year and he hasn't been 100% of himself to this point. So there's a lot of questions on that side, and the fact that still at shortstop, Berger is not going to help you at shortstop whatsoever. So that they're going to be leaning pretty heavily on John Birdie there. Birdie has been playing so well recently, and that he'll probably have to continue playing quite a bit for this team going forward. They didn't address at this particular moment. They did not address the catcher position, and that's one where they're getting really poor production overall. Any way you slice it, as we're getting word now from Ken Rosenthal that Eduardo Rodriguez was not traded.
Yep. So now he'll probably end up opting out, and they'll get their draft pick if whenever he ends up signing somewhere else. The reasoning for vetoing the trade to LA was he wanted to stay on the East Coast and be close to his family. So East Coast, Miami in the offseason, we'll see. You never know. Yeah. So yeah.
So there are a lot of questions about this team, including now that we're running out of potential rotation reinforcements that could actually have been obtained before the deadline at this point. By process of elimination, we're really running short. I haven't seen Mike Clevenger go anywhere. That was a guy that I was not happy about that possibility, but he seemed like a logical candidate that'd be available relatively cheaply and has pretty high upside. And he's on the White Sox. You would think that he would have been bundled together in this trade if he was coming. So without him, and unless they're getting, somebody we're not really thinking of, maybe Jose Quintana, if they go back to the Mets, seeming to have a good relationship with him, depending on how that money works out and how much the Mets are willing to throw in. But it's really hard to think of anything else that they're doing on the pitching side. And even though I think the bullpen is in good shape, I'm really worried about the rotation. And it's going to be hard to be comfortable about this team unless there is a starter coming in at the last possible moment.
Yep. All right, so we will go to the next speaker. Obviously, we're going to go around like 6:30, 6:35, right before first pitch. Alrighty, I don't know if you're connected. All right, I'll let you introduce him, Eli, because I don't know if he's connected for you or not. So
I think Maddox is in here. Is he?
It's connecting for me.
Maybe let's try another one.
Alrighty. No, we're running out of requests.
I think we got Maddox on now.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, we gotta get someone else on. So I'm gonna mention the one I have on here, which is the Dino Sir. So I will let you speak about the Marlins and anything about them at this point.
Hello, everyone. First time on here. One thing that actually two things I wanted to talk about with the addition of Berger on the team. Something that I was thinking about once we acquired him, and once we acquire a lot of power hitters like him, how does he profile in a park like Lone Depot Park? I don't know exactly how much bigger the White Sox Stadium is, Guaranteed Rate Field is, with comparison to Lone Depot. Like, is it something where if you get a power hitter from the Yankees, they're not going to do as well in Miami because the stadium is much bigger? I don't know how much bigger or smaller that park is compared to us,
No. From what I pulled, like, Berger is a particular type of guy that I think he kind of overrides some of those concerns you have. If you just look at the home runs that he has hit this year, almost all of them, I think 24 out of 25 would have been out at Lone Depot.
Josh Bell to the Miami Marlins for Craig Mish.
Wow.
Miami has solved their first base issue, kind of. He hasn't been that good this year. And Josh Bell is heading to the Miami Marlins.
And you're sure that's not a fake account? You're totally sure that's...
I have notifications on for Craig, and that's the one that came up.
Okay.
Wow. Yes, it is Craig. First baseman Josh Bell is going to come to Miami. And it's funny. I was talking about this today with one of my buddies, and I said, man, it wouldn't surprise me if Josh Bell came to Miami, just given how much the first baseman they're looking for. And there it is.
Oh man, I guess we can go through this together. But another power guy? Wow, this is gonna be interesting.
So this is one where the signs are pointing to Josh Bell being available because of the trade that the Guardians just made to get Kyle Manzardo, and for the fact that they already have Josh Naylor performing so well. This is a fascinating one with Bell because he's having a disappointing year. But his upside is pretty immense, and the Marlins have seen that close up because of all his time in the National League, and even at the time when he was with the Nationals, but especially when he was with the Pirates early in his career. It's really good.
Gene Segura and Khalil Watson go to Cleveland.
What? Interesting.
That is for per Jeff Passan. Holy shit.
That's a fun one, because what I was going to say about Bell is he's having a bad year. That contract is underwater, and so the Marlins get by that by sending a different underwater contract and also attaching another one of their best prospects.
Garrett Cooper to the Padres.
And naturally, that's what had to happen, where you can't have all those first basemen on the roster at the same time. So Cooper going to the Padres as well. Wow.
What did Ken Rosenthal tweet? Marlins acquired Josh Bell from Padres for Garrett Cooper.
I think he got the teams mixed up.
He got the teams mixed up. What? All right, Craig just put it. Marlins traded Cooper. Okay.
Okay. And now a note, the Jake Burger trade is now officially official per the Marlins announcement. This one, we're still waiting on the announcement. This is just the reports of it. My first glance is I love it. I love the Bell part of it with Segura. And I know Carver, well, he gets a Carver in a moment. Carver's been saying for a while that Segura's cook. I could play this. Hold on a second. Let me play the soundbite one last time for Segura. Now that one is in the mix. Hold on just one moment to see if I can find that one. Here it is.
He cannot play. He's absolutely cooked. Done. His career is over. Okay.
Ryan Weathers. Eli, you're gonna cry. Sean Reynolds is going to the Padres.
Sean, why? Why? Why is Sean Reynolds going to the Padres?
Oh my god.
Oh.
For Ryan Weathers. All right, they get a pitcher.
So that's their answer. That's their innings eater, Ryan Weathers. Man, that's a young. We got to break these down one at a time. Okay, let's finish our thoughts on Bell and Watson and Segura. So, anything we want to add on that, Kevin, or our speakers? Any of you guys got thoughts on that one first?
Wow. I mean, Josh Bell, I believe he's under contract for another year, if I'm correct. Yeah, 2 years, $33 million. I guess they had interest in him back in the offseason. Keep that in mind. They were in on him. They weren't able to get him. Cleveland got him. And now Josh Bell is a Miami Marlin after trading Gene Segura, who they signed in the offseason, and 2020 first round, I believe, Khalil Watson. So, no, not 2020, 2021. I lied. And, I mean, we'll talk about Garrett Cooper later. I saw that one coming bright as day.
Yeah. If they were, obviously, if Bell is here, then it's Cooper going the other way, as we said before. This is a tough one. The Bell one is a tough one for me. It's a guy that's not having a great season. What does his control look like? Also probably not that great. He's 30 years old, switch hitter, with 233 with 11 home runs. He's known as a power first guy. Hasn't struck out too terribly much this year, but his strikeout to walk rate actually looks pretty good. Still only has a 318 on base percentage. Man, I don't know about this one. I don't know about losing the best offensive talent in your system for this player, and then you throw in Garrett Cooper as well. I think this is an overpay by the Marlins. I really don't like this. This is a trade I don't like for a defensively limited first baseman who is not having a good season with little control. I don't like this one.
I mean, but think about it like this, Alex. I mean, you say best offensive prospect, but it's not. It doesn't mean much. This system isn't that good.
So
now it's a lot worse.
Right, and
no,
so now there's a whole lot of ramifications here in addition to the trades. Like this, acquiring Bell like this, I think it speaks to their lack of confidence in Soler returning, because they are walking into a lot of money here. Bell almost certainly can exercise his player option for next year at $16.5 million, which is more money than the Marlins have paid an individual player for a single season ever. I don't know if they've.
And Eli, why, not to interrupt you, why wouldn't he exercise that player option, especially after the season that he's having, when you can make that kind of money? He almost certainly will exercise that player option.
Right. Now, it should be noted on Bell, this has been a replacement level year for him. For that money, that's obviously disappointing. He has been better as the season has gone on a little bit. You know what? I take that back. He's kind of been consistently just at that replacement level, where I think it was bad at the very beginning. But yeah, the power hasn't been there for him. And this, it's not having a great year. It's also acknowledging now with I think they're acquiring him not necessarily counting on him to be an everyday player, but is he any worse than Cooper? You look across the board, as disappointing as Bell's season has been, is it that much of a downgrade compared to Cooper, who we've had all our complaints about as well? His strikeout rate much higher than it's been. His defense, not great. And in general, like this, I think it's a very comparable talent in terms of what they gave up and what they're sending away in Cooper and what they're bringing back in Bell. They're moving Segura out of the way and makes room for Berger. And then the prospects involved in this. Sean Reynolds, he's a personal favorite of mine. But he is just a reliever. He's a reliever who is not quite. You're not going to trust him down the stretch of this season. I don't think he was going to be a contributor for the rest of this year. He does have some value, of course. And then with Watson is going to be the big polarizing one here, considering that he was their first round pick just 2 years ago. Just coming back, the timing is fascinating because Watson had a minor injury. He's been out the last few weeks. He just got done with the rehab assignment. He just got put back on the Beloit roster a couple hours ago. He was in their lineup that was announced a few hours ago after not playing at the high level for several weeks.
Right. Yeah.
They are selling pretty low on Khalil. They are. But you need to be realistic with your. Me personally, I was a little lower on Khalil than you were, Carver, at this stage of it. It is still a significant piece, and it is still one of the better prospects that they had in their system. That says more about the lack of talent in the system, though, at the time than it does about anything else, really. So I still need a little longer to process this because also Ryan Weathers, that's the final guy I should touch on. Man,
He's not that good.
Man,
I was looking at the stats. He's not that good.
Weathers is a guy that he made it to the big leagues super quickly. Isn't he the son of David Weathers? Big league.
He is the son of David Weathers, a former Marlin. Yes, he is.
He's been around a while now, when he's still only 23 because of how quickly they brought him in the majors. But he has not performed in the majors at all, including this year. You know, it's a 6 ERA, a 6 FIP as well, where he doesn't keep balls in the ballpark. He doesn't miss as many bats as you would like either. I'm curious what they see. Now, there are some, if you squint, aren't there some similarities between Ryan Weathers and 2021 Jesus Luzardo? I think there are some similarities there in terms of the ability that these guys have, the prospect pedigree that they used to have, and the reality that you can make subtle differences, subtle tweaks in what they do and get them a lot better. With Luzardo, they did not get him a lot better immediately. That took an entire offseason to really process those changes. For a team that needs rotation help now, you cannot count on him to improve your rotation outlook right now. He is a body that's available. As much as I like Sean Reynolds, he was taking up precious 40-man roster space. And instead, you swap out a reliever for a guy that is at least capable of going 2 times through an order, and in some cases 3 times through an order. There is some value to that, to it, like actually using your 40-man space on guys that can eat those innings. So my first impression is that I kind of like this stuff as well. The Bell trade is ugly, but then again, what you're sending back, a big piece of that is ugly as well in Segura, who I just did not have a whole lot of faith in really being a good player moving forward with this team. So yeah, we're still processing this. Unhappy about the quality of the starting pitching help that they're getting, but at least they did something there. My snap reaction of this entire deadline is pretty positive for the Marlins, all things considered.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it is positive. Sorry, Kev. I think it is positive overall. I would agree. What I would say for your boy Sean Reynolds, friend of all of ours, was he's a great guy. It's tough to see him go out of the organization before making his big league debut because he was called up to do it, but they didn't put him in the game. So, yeah, it's tough to see this guy go. It's a big, tall guy who throws over 100 with a couple of decent breakers. The good thing for him that I would say in terms of his personal situation, he's from Redondo Beach, California, and now he goes to the San Diego Padres. That's going to allow his family to be around him a lot more. It's going to allow his family to watch him pitch and grow up in Major League Baseball a lot more, which is definitely a plus for that guy. Wish him the best because he was really cool with us. I know, Eli, you like him as well. I think we've all talked to him in some capacity over the course of the last few years. I know Kevin did it at FanFest. We had him on the podcast. You had him on your podcast. Super cool guy. With Weathers, I would agree. It's not a top-end arm whatsoever, but still very young. So there's still time for this guy to improve, and I guess things come full circle in this capacity as well for the Weathers family, because as Eli said, his father was a former Marlins pitcher and also a back-end rotational talent. So, yeah, you kind of see it. You kind of see it permeating with these guys. I trust Mel to do what he can with Ryan and see what he can become, especially at age 23, like Eli said. So I think this is decent. And then Segura, you don't lose much. You don't lose that much in Gene Segura. You guys know that I think that apparently he was a very good clubhouse presence. So I guess that's the main significant loss here, is that he was good in the clubhouse. On the field, you lose slightly, maybe slightly over replacement level defense with a dead bat. So, yeah, they don't lose much in Gene Segura there either. So, again, they trade a little bit from the big league team, as you can see here with Cooper and Segura. But they trade mostly from prospect capital. This system is going to look a lot worse after today. I will say that, with Eater gone and Khalil gone and Reynolds even gone, like, this system is going to look a lot worse. And what I would say, honestly, to all of you guys, in losing probably one of their best pitchers, or definitely one of their best pitching prospects, if not the best pitching prospect, since Yuri has graduated, it probably could be argued that he is the best pitching prospect over Noble Meyer. I know a couple people had him there, and Eater. And then you also lose, I think, definitely your most projectable offensive talent on the offensive side of the baseball. That's Khalil, who, just as Eli said, was back today in the Beloit lineup. That's not going to be a thing. He's probably on his way over to his new team. So, man, the system's going to look a lot worse today, and I think they're going to be probably in the bottom 10 overall in terms of prospect talent. So it's going to kind of switch up my reporting and Kevin's reporting on the system, but we'll continue to be there. But yeah, this minor league system got a lot worse today for good reason, but this minor league system got a lot worse today.
Quickly to mention, we should be expecting a lot of roster moves. Garrett Cooper and Gene Segura were both in the lineup tonight. Garrett Cooper was the DH. Gene Segura, I believe, was hitting 8th and playing 3rd, so obviously we will be expecting some shakeup there. Andrew Nardi was expected to be activated today, so we're going to see a lot of movement, not only today, but tomorrow as well. And I would expect to see all of these guys here tomorrow in Miami. So, and Isaac is now requesting, and I think we could wrap it up right after he speaks, unless you want to keep it going, Eli. But I don't think Miami will be making much more.
Yeah. Go ahead, Isaac.
Isaac?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys went over the new lineup already, but yes, Cooper and Segura both had to be removed. It's Arise, Soler, DLC, Avi Garcia, Jesus Sanchez now in the lineup in center field, Birdie, 6, Yuli Gurriel, Joey Wendell's now at shortstop, at short, obviously batting 8th, and Jacob Stallings is still catching 7th.
Your thoughts on the trades, both of them?
Well, this farm system, like Alex Carver said, I think Carver was the highest of all of us on Khalil Watson, and for Josh Bell, it's an interesting one. Yeah, I do like Watson, especially he's been really hot. I know he just came back from an injury and he looked really good from other teams' guys. But wait, it's a steep price. All these acquisitions have come at a steep price. But you know what? At least Kim is doing what she promised she'd do, and that's to add. And she added 4 guys in total to the major league roster, 5 include Lopez. So you can't complain. You really can't complain. They're going all in. That's what you have to do. You're in a wild card spot even after losing yesterday. They're doing the right thing, but it's going to be a tough job to replenish this farm system in the next couple of years.
The inclusion of Segura in that trade is puzzling to me. What does he do for the Guardians
it's now? The money. It's the money. It's the option.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, just getting rid of the contract. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, it seems to be like a pure throw-in. Like, Khalil is the value, right? So the Marlins just have to clear out the money to pay for Josh Bell, right? And obviously, like we said, they'll likely be paying for Josh Bell next season as well, unless he all of a sudden hits 1,000 over the course of the next couple of months. So, yeah, really, really interesting trade with Segura and Watson. You see 2 players on opposite ends of their careers, and you get back a player who is kind of in the middle of his career with Josh Bell, or maybe treading towards the back end of his career. But not really, because he's still pretty young, right? But, man, his performance this year has been pretty suspect when it comes to Bell. So that trade, I honestly don't like it. The other one is okay, I would say, because they get back what they need in terms of back-end rotational talent. Cooper just didn't have a place here anymore, is what I would say for him. expiry contract. You're bringing in now Josh Bell. That was obvious that he was going to go. You're also bringing in Berger, who could play first base, as we said before. And then you throw in the prospect capital with Sean. So, man, very interesting deadline. I'm glad to see that the Marlins were this active. They needed to be this active if they're truly serious about competing. And they're all in. You can say that the Marlins right now, for what they did to this farm system today, they are all in. They're no longer prospect hugging. I know everybody hated when they prospect hugged in the past and everything else. They said no to trades at Khalil Watson as early as last year. And today they traded Khalil Watson. So there is your signification from Kim Ng and Bruce Sherman that this club is bought in right now to winning baseball games as early as, well, probably tomorrow, because this lineup is in shambles today. But yeah, they're all in.
Yeah, and guys, just so you guys know, hug watch is a thing at this time of year. Garrett Cooper's in the dugout giving hugs to everyone on the Marlins. He knows, he's been told of the trade, I assume. And yeah, Garrett Cooper is gone, and that's it. But it's tough to see these guys get hugs in the dugout about only 10 minutes till first pitch. My goodness. Yeah, I guess these guys are going to be headed to the airport.
That's baseball.
Yeah, and quickly, I do believe Garrett Cooper was the longest tenured guy on the team. Now,
yes, he is. He is. I agree. I was talking about that in the clubhouse today. Holy crap, he's been here since 2018. Obviously, he hasn't played a ton because of injuries, but he has been here since 2018, the whole rebuild, the whole 2020 season, and up until today, he has been a Marlin. So, thank him for his services.
Yeah. So really quickly,
he goes to a good situation. I'm sorry, Eli. He goes to a pretty good situation with San Diego, who needed first base help. Everyday guy.
I guess it's a good situation. The Marlins are better than the Padres this year, record-wise.
In terms of his playing time, he'll play every day, probably.
Yeah. And the Padres continue to make some other additions here as well.
They have Naylor, right? Don't they still have Naylor? Right? Yeah.
They have Cronenworth at first.
Who do they have at first base? Isn't it Naylor that they have at first base?
Oh no, Naylor's been in Cleveland for
Sorry, I'm mixing up my teams again. I guess I'm
Carver.
My bad. So who is the Padres' first baseman? That's a good question.
Cronenworth. It's Jake Cronenworth.
I don't know if he replaced.
And then quick note on Bell, he has a player option for next season. So
which he'll take.
Yeah, he will 100% take.
So
6.5 mil.
Precisely. So if Jorge Soler does opt in, they are running themselves into a lot of money for next season. I guess
exactly.
Which it's fine. That's what you have a major league team for.
I see this as a pretty significant upgrade on both corners. You go from Segura, who was one of the worst hitters in the MLB, to a guy who has 25 home runs. And then at first base, Coop being in and out of the lineup, a huge question mark. Josh Bell severely underperforming his according to his batted ball data. Cooper was performing exactly in line with his batted ball data. So if you look at the OPS plus, they both have 96. Josh Bell is in line for serious positive regression if he keeps hitting the ball like this. So with that in mind, I see this as a huge W. I've always thought Khalil Watson, the name, has always produced the hype, not the numbers. I mean, it would have been nice if we let go of him in the Bryant Reynolds trade, but I think Josh Bell, I've always wanted Josh Bell on the team. I've always thought he was a solid player. So I see this as a huge W. With Bell, he also doesn't strike out much. Only, if I'm correct, 20% strikeout rate, 10% walk rate. I like the fit. Miami obviously had interest in him this past season. Let's see how he kind of plays now. Obviously, he wasn't having a good year with Cleveland, or not to the standards that they thought they were getting him for. So he will be the first baseman this season. Next season, you could best bet, and maybe he's a trade piece next season for Miami if they're in a seller mode.
Yeah, but as has been touched on by now, a couple of you guys, this is a pretty strong indicator that they're not going to pay Soler to come back. So that's an interesting dynamic because he's been so important to this team so far this season with him. And I don't know. I don't know if Bell is the better player for the rest of this year and for next year than Soler is, but there was uncertainty about whether they would have control over Soler beyond this year. And in that same mix, they clear up the roster. Well, they still have two first base only guys in Bell and Gurriel, but you have somebody in Bell that's a more natural platoon partner. You have somebody in Bell that, as D-Rod just touched on, is somebody that is poised, you would think, to have a really good finish to the season. As long as he continues to do the stuff he was already doing, should get better results. But really quickly, let's get thoughts from the other speakers before we hang this up. Jorge, we brought you in. Yeah. 3 trades now in a matter of a couple hours. What's on your mind?
Man, I was ready to cook. I was about to start letting the tweets fly. But no, I think overall, like, I think my biggest complaint over the course of the season, I think the people that watch it understand that really the only threat in the lineup was Soler. Like, there was nobody that scared you. Like, sure, Arias is going to get you on base, but he's not really going to, he's not going to hit that 3-run shot. And so, like we all said, like, you had guys that would get on base and then soft ground out to the left side of the infield, pop out, warning track maybe. And to go get Berger and Josh Bell are guys that, like, they mash. Even if Josh Bell is having a down year, like, he has a track record of being a masher. And then he's going to opt in, and then he's going to be motivated to produce. I got rid of Floro, brought in Jorge Lopez, David Robertson, and halfway joking, like, we haven't had the greatest track record of developing offensive prospects, so it sucks to give up Watson, but it is what it is, right? Like, you can look back on it in 2, 3, 4, 5 years and go, oh man, maybe we should have made that trade. Who knows how, Josh Bell explodes. Like, it is what it is. Like, I like what Kim did. I was very pleased. There's a lot of kind of like mixed opinions over the coup for Ryan Weathers trade, but it was the same thing when they traded Marte for Luzardo, and look at Luzardo now. And, like, we keep mentioning, like, the kid's 23. Like, just let Mel cook. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm happy. I wanted to see, like, a partial facelift to the team, add some power, and they've done that. And, like, I'm happy. It's a vote of confidence to the fans. They're actually willing to go in and do what they got to do to improve the team. So I'm happy with them.
Quick updates. Edward Cabrera has been optioned to AAA Jacksonville. They are bringing back Andrew Nardi, and Garrett Hampson has been recalled from AAA Jacksonville. So plenty of moves on top of the trades. Eli, Isaac, and I guess just the group chat on Fish on First was really talking about, after Edward's start, that I think that we all thought a AAA stint was necessary for Edward, and he's going to go down there. Obviously, it'll give him time to work on his command issues.
Yep.
And I guess Ryan Weathers is kind of the replacement here.
Yeah. So with Weathers, it's the only different. These guys have struggled. You could say that Weathers has struggled more than even Edward has in terms of production. What you're doing is, you have somebody that could throw strikes, but a lot of those strikes are meatballs. Unfortunately, with him, it's so much more balls in play and a lot more balls over the fence. He has not performed, so they're acquiring him. That's the diciest part of this, is getting somebody that you don't know if he immediately makes your rotation better. And the bar was pretty low in terms of getting a starter that would do that. And I don't know whether checks that box. There is risk with this deadline overall. You can point to every player here that they acquired for their major league team. There's risk with every one of them. So that's why it's not a perfect deadline, and no such thing as a perfect deadline. They're absorbing a lot of risk here and giving up quite a bit of prospect capital in the process as well. I think all things considered, they needed to take a swing to have to give themselves a realistic chance of actually making the playoffs. I didn't think they had a shot if they stood pat on the starting pitching and on the position player side. So they made a lot of creative moves. And I think, if nothing else, this is going to bring quite a bit of excitement and enthusiasm. I think these are going to be well received in general by people, that they are making that push. They're adding more money. I need to process all this, but they are taking on this whole deadline between Robertson, $3.5 million left to him this year, and Bell over Cooper. Bell was making about 4 times as much money as Cooper this year. They are adding in. They are dumping Segura in the process, but I think if you net it all out, they've added. This is not only a Kim Ng masterclass, but this is Bruce Sherman kind of doing what he was supposed to do. He is taking on quite a bit of money at this deadline. When the playoffs are not a certainty, and knowing the risk involved, as I just laid out. So hats off to Bruce Sherman on being complicit in some of these moves that they wanted to make.
Just to fully illustrate this really quickly.
Eli mentioned it. Gene Segura is going to get released by the Guardians. So, yeah. That was expected, though.
To fully illustrate this really quickly, Kevin, I'll ask you, with Watson gone from the Marlins, who is the best offensive prospect for the Marlins?
Jesus Christ. You made that. That may be one of the hardest questions. Oh, God.
It's Kemp Alder.
I'm
just kidding.
Victor Mesa Jr., I guess? That's all I can think of. I don't like what Yee's done this year.
According to Pipeline, if you go by how Pipeline's
I think it's Jacob Berry.
No, by them would be Barry and then Joe Mack as the top two.
Yeah, by them it would be Barry and then Joe Mack.
Yeah, we do not we do not agree with that assessment there.
No, we don't.
For first, it's Victor Mesa Jr. Just want to let you guys know.
Yeah, I would agree with Victor Mesa Jr. followed by, I guess, probably a little further down, Yiddy Capay, who has been disappointing this year. But you can see what I mean. That's the point I wanted to make is they cleared out this system through these trades today with one of their best pitchers and not so arguably, definitely not arguably their best offensive talent. So they're all in. Like I said before, they're all in for this year and maybe even next year. Past that, man, long-term projection of the system looks a little rough unless these draft guys pop off. It looks a little rough.
We had a commenter just now shout out Troy Johnston as the best hitter in the system.
There you go.
We love
I
Troy,
like
and he's performed like the best one this year, right behind him and Dane Myers neck and neck with them. But of course, Troy is now 26. Troy is almost as old as Jake Berger is. He's And I don't. Let's hear finally from Danilo, who's the last one that I brought in that hasn't had a chance to speak. So if there's anything you want to add before we wrap this up baseball game, go ahead.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Honestly, I'm partially excited about what's to come. I've been a big fan of Josh Bell for a while. I'm old enough to remember when Josh Bell was the best hitter on the Pirates a couple years back, and he did run the Marlins up for a few good runs when he was on the Nationals. Ultimately, they gave up a couple prospects, but they did get better in the corners where they needed the most help. There's still an issue with shortstop and center field long term, but you worry about those in the offseason. And when you bring in these guys to a team that's in the middle of a postseason berth, you hope that kind of revitalizes and re-energizes guys like Josh Bell to perform more like his career averages than he's currently having, and encourages Jake Berger. Hopefully, there's an average situation that can help increase his offensive metrics for the Marlins. But overall, I guess it's a solid upgrade for a team that was in dire need of home runs and a new first baseman.
Yep.
Yeah, significant with the money though.
It's a fun deadline, guys. Fun deadline.
Yeah, no, it's really fun. Definitely really fun. A lot more fun than last year. What you can say though is what we've all been saying, Danilo and everybody else. Like they're clearly bought in for right now. But man, the long-term projection for minor league system is looks a lot worse today, and that's where I'll do it.
Yeah, I do. But this is so with Edward going down, the rotation, he basically takes over for Weathers. Wouldn't surprise me if Uri's back pretty soon. I mean, if this Weathers thing doesn't work early on, Uri's Uri. He's there. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, correct. Uri pitching tonight, his second minor league start since being sent down. We expect him to get stretched out even a little more than he was the previous time. Still, I would expect at least one more minor league start after that before they consider bringing him back. Yeah, with this one, Ryan Weathers is at least for a few starts. Those starts are gonna be scrutinized very closely with him because there were simply better present day immediate rotation upgrades available. But they were able to get him in, I think, what all things considered in that particular deal, it was less expensive than some of the other deals that were out there for starters at this deadline. Every game is going to count. If this team does make the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be by a big margin. So all of these games, very, very precious with them. But yeah, fun deadline. I think that's the one thing that people can agree on is that there was a lot of consternation deep into today about them not making any additional moves. But those first two count as well. The Jorge Lopez, David Robertson, those are deadline deals. The Marlins made 5 deadline trades without even checking. I'm pretty confident that is either most or tied for the most among major league teams. I can't imagine any other team has been more aggressive in trying to tweak their roster to make it more well-rounded and dangerous.
Then this
Well,
is
I will say this. Go ahead, Danilo.
I was going to say that this is a much better deadline than the last time when they bought, which brought us Andrew Kashner, or brought the Marlins Andrew Kashner, and the one start of Colin Ray.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, I don't remember that, but I will say, I believe Eli. So looking back at the predictions we did with Alex Carr yesterday, he was the closest. I believe between the Phillies and Marlins, they made 7 trades, 2 from the Phillies, 5 by Miami.
2 from the Phillies. Well, no, the first 2 weren't in our game. Our prediction game was just for starting last night. So that I guess the Phillies made 2. You said. I think I missed the second Phillies trade.
It was Rodolfo Castro, and they also got Lorenzen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that would be 5 from when we made that prediction last night.
Okay. Well, I think we could end it here. I would say.
Yes, we can. That was a great show.
Big following. Thank you all we still have a lot of people here. Well, thank you guys for showing up. We appreciate it. I guess we'll have a State of the Fish at some point in the end of the week. So we'll be recapping their first weeks. I'll be at the ballpark with Noah tomorrow. We'll be hearing from the newest members of the Marlins, Ryan Weathers, Josh Bell, and Jake Berger. And we will I don't know if Kim is speaking today. I would assume if it's not today, it's tomorrow. So that'll be mentioned at some point. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us, from Eli, from Alex Carver, from Isaac, from everyone else who joined. Crutch, I believe, joined here for a second. We'll see you guys all on Friday for the Texas Rangers series. That's a big one coming up. And yeah, go Fish.